This video is brought to you by my new book, Genesis Saga: A Call to Aid. If you're craving a science fantasy adventure that's more in the spirit of Star Wars before Disney ruined it, then feel free to check out the links in the description. It's available in both ebook and paperback. Red Solstice 2 is one of those games. The kind we've stumbled onto while browsing through Steam, looking at all the indie games spewed onto the storefront, waiting for something of worth to pop up instead of the latest hentai game or no-budget indie title. This was the third entry in a series by Ironward, and I had briefly played the first entry when it was being given away. I didn't think too much of it and never really touched it again. But now I recently got my hands on the sequel and thought, why not? A sequel to a nice mix of real-time strategy and Doom? Surely there's been some improvements that'll make me want to stick around with this one for longer, right? Well, punch me in the stomach, then crack my skull with a baton and call me Judy, because that's actually what happened. Just not right away.
Reloading. Extraction is nearing your sector.
I will be blunt right out of the gate. This game is fun. I had fun playing Red Solstice 2, but I didn't play as much as I would have liked thanks to two important reasons. The first is that there's a number of bugbears that come together to bring the game down in its early hours, and it made it hard for me to really get into it from the get-go. See, the problem with the early game is that you don't have a lot available right away. You've only got one character class, a handful of side mission types, and the same 3 or 4 maps for those repeated ad nauseum. This creates a sense that the game is lacking in content, when this is not the case. It's just an unfortunate drip feed of content as you progress. As soon as you move through the campaign and complete research for upgrades, these problems do remedy themselves. New maps are introduced, as well as weather-based variations, alongside greater mission variety and methods of prepping for them. It's just unfortunate that this drip feed creates a sense that the game's lacking in content, and it's easy for it to make someone just walk away before it can really show what it has to offer. The other reason why I struggled to put in the hours I wanted is because I got Elden Ring for my birthday, and honestly, that game is the cocaine of Soulsborns. However, once the meat of the game is revealed, what we get is a gaming experience that's a healthy mix of Dawn of War 2, Doom, and XCOM, with a little bit of twin-stick shooter thrown in, and it all works. From Dawn of War 2, we get squad-based real-time strategy, with the ability to guide specific squad mates and fire off their special attacks as needed for precision. From Doom, we get swarms of enemies going for your ghoulies, and the options for twin-stick shooting not only for precision, but also critical hits to better deal with the priority targets in a swarm. While from XCOM, we get squad mate customization, class specialization, researching upgrades, a world map, and a ticking clock not too dissimilar to XCOM 2's Avatar Project countdown. The only real downside to all of this is the sound design. To be more specific, the sound design on the guns suck. They just lack impact and sound more like airsoft guns going off on acne-riddled teens rather than, you know, military artillery operated to shred alien mutants like they're meat paper dolls. This is something else that can also make it hard for someone to really get into the game in the early hours. However, one thing the game nails flawlessly is how it handles difficulty. At the mission start screen, there's a number of modifiers that the player is free to adjust to change the mission's overall difficulty, with more becoming available as you complete the related research. The trade-off for making things easier is in different ways, as well as some modifiers to the maps. For example, if you use your long-range artillery to reduce the enemy's overall health, then this is going to lead to the map being bombed out. This has an effect where buildings that you could have used to, say, bottleneck enemies or evade them or even slow them down are now going to have holes in the walls that completely destroys that strategic value. And that's on top of the total number of potential supplies that you could have used to help you being reduced as well because they were destroyed in the strike. This creates a nice risk and reward factor that the player has to weigh before almost every mission, and I love it. What's more is there's also a different drip feed that's tied to the difficulty as well, where the longer you spend on a mission, the harder it gets. The longer you decide to stick around around completing randomly spawning secondary objectives, then more enemies will spawn, and they're also going to spawn higher tier mobs at higher rates. This does mean that early missions in particular do feel easier than they really are at first, but once the real challenge does set in, that's when the real demand for strategy begins, and it is balls of fun. But before that challenge does set in though, the missions can be so easy that you don't even need to touch the precision tactics, but once it does, trust me, you'll be glad it's there for the extra breathing room it can provide for you. Now, those of you who are eagle-eyed will have noticed one particular thing about this review, and that's that I have not touched on the story yet. Well, my friend, there is a good reason for that. It exists beneath the cellar floor of the game's priority list. What story there is decent enough, but honestly, it just exists to provide context for why we're fighting off mutant alien zombies in overrun Martian colonies. There is lore for those who are interested in looking into it, but for me, I didn't find it to be enough of an incentive to really look into the game's archives. The characters, when they do make their presence known, they are enjoyable enough, thanks largely to their voice acting, which really does fall into the realm of so bad it's good, with B-grade actors providing these over-the-top silly performances that lumber back and forth between laughable and, as I said, so bad it's good. Honestly, it gives the impression that if this game was to be adapted into a TV show or a movie, it would be done in something in the style of Z Nation, like just something that's ridiculously B-grade, fun, and still manages to be suspenseful with likable characters. Overall, I enjoyed my time with Red Solstice 2. I'm glad I got through the weaker opening gameplay and got to the stronger stuff. I just wish there weren't other titles or projects that pulled me away from it. There's a mine of fun to be had here, but like a real mine, you need to cut through layers of rock to reach what you're after, but once you find it, dude, trust me, it all ends up being worth it. What's that I see? You made it all the way to the end? That makes you one of the best people out there, and you know what they do? They hit the like and the subscribe buttons. Now for the next gaming video, I'm actually going to be doing a showcase, taking a look at some hidden gems in my backlog that I've got thanks to Humble Bundle. Let's just see if I can actually find some gold, or if I end up finding some petrified turds instead. Now as for the movie reviews, I was planning to get back into a regular schedule with those, but unfortunately, certain things just came up and, well, completely threw that out the window. One thing, finishing off my new book, but recently I also hit a bit of financial turmoil that I am out of, but I still need to put in some more work towards just getting rid of the lasting effects. It's not something I can't crawl out of, but it was just something sudden. Either way though, do expect the movie reviews to come back at some point. I got plenty of stuff in the pipeline, so please stick around.